The sun was lowering over endless fields when a silver SUV shuddered to a stop on County Route 19. Dust lifted, settled, and the silence after the engine died felt like a held breath. Richard Wallace, grey-templed in a suit that cost a week's wages for most, stared at the dashboard warning and then at the rearview mirror where the shoulder sloped away into wheat. He was late for a donor dinner, a place where people spoke softly and numbers were loud. His calls to roadside assistance played the same recorded apology. He opened the trunk, found a jack he'd never used, and laughed without humor. Across the road, cicadas worked the heat like a band playing the same song forever. He checked the sky. Storms threatened but hadn't committed. "Come on," he told the tire, as if money could negotiate with rubber. The empty road said nothing back. He rolled his cuffs and felt ridiculous. From over the rise came the rattle and click of a chain. A boy coasted into view, knees up, elbows out, the way you ride when the frame is a size too big. He braked near the SUV and set a sneaker on the gravel. "Are you good, mister?" he asked. Richard straightened, surprised by the casual kindness. "Flat," he said. "And apparently helpless." The kid's grin flashed. "Name's Jamal, I can help. My dad says tires are just puzzles that follow directions." Richard almost laughed. "You're 12. 12 and a half, Jamal said, already kneeling to set the jack. "Half matters when you're short." Jamal talked while he worked, the way confident people do when their hands already know the sequence. "Loosen before you lift," he explained, bracing the lug wrench with his body weight. "Otherwise the wheel spins and you fight air." The first nut cracked free with a satisfying pop. Richard, who had closed deals with tighter seals, felt foolishly proud just watching. "Where'd you learn?" he asked. "My dad fixes tractors for folks," Jamal said. "Sometimes we get paid. Sometimes we get pie. Mom likes the pie better." He laughed, then set the jack, checking the pinch weld like a pro. Gravel crunched under sneakers. Far off, a hawk drew circles on the sky. Jamal's focus never left the wheel. "Cars don't care how fancy they are," he said. "They all act right when you follow the steps." When Jamal asked for the spare and the key for the locking nuts, Richard fumbled through a manual he had never opened. Jamal found the pouch immediately, then arranged tools on a clean square of cardboard, as neat as an operating room. "You always this prepared?" Richard asked. "Only when I'm not," Jamal said and shrugged. He told Richard about Saturday mornings at the church lot, where his dad changed oil for neighbors who could not afford a shop. "People bring coffee," Jamal said. "Mrs. Turner brings those cinnamon rolls that make you forget your name." The spare came out, heavy and hopeful. Jamal spun it with both hands and grinned at the perfect balance. "See? It wants to help." Richard noticed the boy's bike leaned carefully against the guardrail, chain rusted but oiled, like a soldier's old rifle kept clean out of respect. With the spare mounted and the nuts tightening in a star pattern, Richard's relief turned into gratitude and then into habit. He reached for his wallet. "Let me pay you for your time," he said. A $100 bill slid half out, crisp and impersonal. Jamal shook his head before the green showed fully. "No, sir. You were stuck. I could help." "That's the whole math." Richard frowned, unused to math without currency. "At least let me get you a better bike," he tried. Jamal glanced at the rusted chain, at the tape-wrapped handlebar, and smiled like someone considering a friend's feelings. "This one knows my streets," he said. "It'll do." The refusal embarrassed Richard more than any insult could. He was a man who solved everything with checks and signatures. Here was a problem fixed with skill and decency, and those had no price tag. Richard slid the wallet away and offered instead a business card, embossed, context-heavy. "If you ever need anything, work references, scholarship forms, call me." Jamal accepted the card carefully, like a fragile thing, then tucked it into the back pocket of jeans gone shiny at the edges. "Thank you," he said, "but I'm set for today." For the first time, Richard looked past the boy and really saw the outskirts of town. A grain elevator, a water tower with flaking paint, a small house line far off like punctuation at the end of a long sentence. "Where do you live?" he asked. Jamal pointed. "Blue door, white fence. If you blink, you'll miss the mailbox. It leans." Richard nodded, filed the landmarks like coordinates. The jack eased the car down. Jamal rechecked each lug with a final tug. "Good as new," he said, and meant the road too. The air smelled like rain not yet born. Richard hesitated, then said, "My dinner can wait. Let me drive you home." Jamal looked down the road, judging distance by familiarity, then nodded. He loaded the bicycle into the cargo area with quick, protective motions. The SUV's interior swallowed the old frame like a museum swallowing a relic. As they drove, Jamal pointed left at a stand of pecan trees. "We sell them in fall. Folks line up, and right at a field now fallow. Dad says soil needs rest the way people do." Richard found himself talking too, about offices where glass walls multiplied reflections until faces looked busy, even when they were tired, about a calendar that scheduled generosity and called it philanthropy. Jamal listened like listening was a job you could be proud of. "You sound important," he said. Richard almost corrected him, then didn't. "I sound busy," he said. Jamal's home sat low and tidy behind a fence painted the color of summer skies. Wind chimes made from spoons rang a soft welcome. A woman stepped onto the porch, wiping her hands on a dish towel, worry flashing then softening when she saw her son. "You're late. Helped a man with a tire, Mama?" Jamal said. Richard removed his sunglasses, introduced himself, and braced for suspicion. Instead, Jamal's mother smiled with the kind tiredness of people who trade time for dignity. "Thank you for giving him a ride," she said. "He'd have biked it anyway." From the shed came a clank and a muttered oath. "That'll be his father," she added, amused. The generators got opinions. Inside, the house smelled like pepper and sweet tea. A rebuilt toaster sat beside a radio, missing its faceplate, but still singing. Everything looked used well, not used up. They insisted Richard sit. They insisted he eat. Cornbread appeared. A wedge of last night's roast, the kind of sweet tea that forgives hard days. Conversation moved the way good food does. Easy, generous, seasoned by laughter. Jamal's father asked about the donor dinner, and Richard found himself telling the truth. He was tired of nodding in rooms where the stories were numbers, and the numbers never became names. "Then change the stories," Jamal's mother said simply. "You have the kind of key that opens rooms like that." Jamal listened from the doorway, rolling a socket gently in his palm. "People come to the church lot because Dad explains the fix," he said. "Not just does it. When folks understand, they don't feel small." Richard looked down at his plate and felt the strange, new relief of being understood without being asked for anything. A thump sounded in the shed out back, followed by a cough of a motor failing to catch. Jamal's father grimaced. "That generator again. Keeps the shop lights on when storms roll through. Lately it dies if you look at it mean." He started to rise, but Jamal was already on his feet. "I got it," the boy said. Richard followed, curious. The shed smelled like hot metal and old lawn. Jamal pulled the recoil starter, listened, then opened the housing with a flathead. "Air filter's clogged," he said, tapping dust onto a rag. "As the plug's fouled." He cleaned, regapped, tightened. The pull cord answered with a bark, then a steady hum. Jamal wiped his hands and grinned at the machine like an old friend behaving. Richard laughed out loud, a sound he barely recognized as his. "You fix more than tires," he said. "Sometimes," Jamal replied. "Sometimes things want to work. They just need a chance." Back at the table, Richard set his phone down beside the cornbread, a sacrilege in some homes, a signal in this one. "I run a foundation," he said. "We fund scholarships for students who don't wait to be told what they can do. Jamal, if you keep showing up like you did today, I'll make sure college doesn't come down to luck." Jamal looked at his parents before he looked at the man. His father nodded once, slow. His mother's eyes shone. "We don't need handouts," she said gently. "We need handholds." Richard felt something unfasten inside his chest. "Then call it a handhold," he said, "and hold me to it." Jamal touched the business card in his pocket like a talisman newly warm. "I will," he said. The porch clock ticked toward evening. For a second, the room quieted, as if listening to a future assemble itself. Dusk deepened as Richard walked Jamal to the SUV. The bike went back into the cargo space. "Thank you," Richard said, meaning for the tire, the meal, and the lesson. Jamal laughed. "You already said that." "I'll keep saying it," Richard replied, and handed back the business card with a direct number scribbled in blue. "Call any time." Jamal tucked it into a notebook. On Route 19, the repaired tire hummed. Richard merged toward town with a different urgency than the one that had pushed him here. He didn't want to be late for donors. He wanted to be early for change. He rolled the window down and let the evening in. Behind him, A boy on a rusty bicycle pedaled toward a house with a blue door and parents who would listen as he told them how a flat tire had turned into a horizon.